Now that you're settled into your body, let's start working to shift your mindset to continue to overcome this anxiety. So I want you to take a moment, get a piece of paper and a pen, something to write with. And if you need a moment to pause this video and grab that, then go ahead and do that. So what we're going to do is we are going to identify the source of anxiety. And I want you to just take a moment and listen and sit through this with me. It might not pop out to you at first, but we are going to identify where we can create more peace from that source. Whenever we're having anxiety, it's because we're experiencing a lack of trust somewhere. And there's three main areas that we want to look at where we can be experiencing this lack of trust. And the reason this is important is because whenever we feel trust, we feel safe. And safety / certainty is our number one human need. Without that, we feel a lot of things, including anxiety, including depression, including lost, foggy, unclear, unmotivated, lots of other things. So the number one thing that we need to look at is, where are you experiencing this lack of trust right now? Now, as mentioned, there's three areas that this could be, and I want you to write these down. The first area that we can be experiencing a lack of trust is with our higher power. I call it God. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it source, universe, whatever you think. It's essentially the knowing that there's something beyond me that's responsible for the world turning, for the plants growing, for the, maybe you call them coincidences that happen into our lives. It's knowing that there's something beyond me that is taking care of the world. There's a force beyond me that's greater than me, that's greater than all people. Now, the second source that we can be experiencing a lack of trust is with ourselves, right? That's self-explanatory. And then the third area is with other people, whether that is humans that you interact with all the time, that you have a deep connection or relationship with, or people that you simply are driving next to in a car, or that live next to you, that you encounter in the grocery store or wherever. People are everywhere. So we often have fleeting exchanges of trust with others, right? If you go if let's say you're driving in your car, you trust that the person who's driving next to you is qualified to drive and they're not out to get you, right? And if they try to cut you off, then maybe that trust goes away and you try to get away from them. We trust that when we go to the grocery store and we buy our food, that the person who is taking our money is going to give us the proper amount of change back, right? And then we have deeper exchanges of trust as well. So in those three areas, with I'm going to use the word God, you can use whatever you want. So with the exchanges of trust with God, with ourselves, and with other people, our minds, whenever we feel unsafe for whatever reason, we start to feel a lack of trust. We're not trusting in maybe God to have, to take care of us, or that there's something that's working for us. We might not be trusting ourselves that we can do whatever needs to be done, that we can move ourselves forward. There's a lot of different ways that we can act when we don't trust ourselves. And then the third thing is if it's somebody else that we're not trusting. So maybe you're in a relationship and you don't trust that your partner has your best interest at heart, and maybe they're lying to you or something like that. Then you can feel a lot of tension. You can feel a lot of anxiety from that too. So I want you to take a look at that space, and I want you to circle the area or areas where you're currently feeling a lack of trust. And after you do that, I want you to write down, what does it look like when I don't trust myself? What does it look like when I'm experiencing a lack of trust with God? What does it feel like? What does it look like when I'm feeling a lack of trust with myself? And how does that look? And then repeat that for the third place. How does it look and feel when I'm not trusting other people? So whatever category is especially prominent for you right now, focus on that. Or if you have multiple categories, that's completely normal. Focus on all of them. And I want you to get really aware of, okay, when I'm not trusting in, God to take care of me, when I'm not trusting in myself to take care of me, this is how I'm acting. This is what experience comes up for me. This is where my mind goes. This is how my body acts. These are my tendencies. And I'm going to give you a crazy example of my own. So I had, for my very first talk that I ever did, I was presenting and I was so terrified. I was preparing for it coming up that week. And instead of getting very focused and feeling confident, I was feeling a lot of anxiety about, who was going to come and what they were going to think of me, and what if nobody came, and what if everybody came, and absolutely every scenario felt anxiety ridden, and I just couldn't see myself confidently moving through it. So So the way that I started to behave is I noticed that when I was watching a lot of Netflix that week, I was just absorbing like absolutely everything that I could. And then two, I was eating terrible food. Like there was a point where I was sitting on the couch eating out of a frosting container, watching something unhelpful on Netflix. And I noticed that when I wasn't trusting myself and when I wasn't trusting God, that I became very avoidant. I didn't want to think about what was going on. I didn't want to address it. I just wanted to completely avoid it. I wanted to be distracted. I wanted to kind of cling on to anything that can sort of like artificially lift me up. And that's exactly what it was. It was artificial, like frosting wasn't going to actually solve my problems or make me feel better, nor was any sort of like, no matter how many episodes of whatever was on Netflix, whether that was funny or dramatic or suspenseful, it wasn't going to solve my problems. It was just an artificial distraction that was like an artificial little like dopamine hit to make me feel better. So I want you to think about that for yourself. What do you tend to do when you're not trusting? And maybe you can notice that right now. Another thing that we can do is we can become very, if we're not trusting ourselves to carry things out, then we can become very busy. Like I was just saying, we can put a lot on our plate so that we don't have to look at ourselves. You might notice this with some people who take on a lot of other people's problems, or they like to take on a lot of other people's stress and solve other people's problems. And you might notice that person isn't actually paying attention to him or herself. They're not taking care of their own problems because it's easier to deal with everybody else's, to manage everybody else's, and feel like it kind of gives them a sense of control or safety. So notice what that is for yourself. And then after you identify different ways that you feel and behave when you're not trusting yourself, look at how does it feel and what does it look like when you are trusting God, yourself, and other people. And so again, whichever categories are prominent for you right now, you can focus on that. But this is also a great awareness for you to have at any time. So think about when you are trusting, how do you behave? What are you doing? How do you engage with people? What are your habits like? How do you feel in your body? Thinking about your breath again, like I mentioned in the breathing section, that whenever we're not trusting, we have our shoulders are rounded, we're protecting ourselves off, we're protecting our heart, and we might feel a constriction in the throat or breath only into the chest and not into the full belly. So think about that for yourself. And then you can think about what's one thing that I can do right now that will allow me to loosen the grip a little bit, because whenever we're not trusting, we try to control everything. We're trying to control the outcome because everything has to be just so that I can feel safe. And it's an artificial safe. It's an artificial feeling of safety. So when we're stepping toward more trust, you don't have to let go of the entire steering wheel at once and just do a free fall. You can just loosen your grip a little bit at once, right? So you can think about what's one thing that I can do right now just to experience some more trust in this space. Some absolutely important things to do too are to change your energy state. So whenever we're in anxiety, right, we're in our head, we need to get into our body, and our mind is really taking over. So get out of your head by shifting states. Get out of your environment, go for a long walk, go take a bath, do something sensory to draw your attention to other things. That could be cooking. That could be like, I'm imagining playing with dough, or whatever, but doing something with your hands. You can do creativity. Creativity is also in a completely different realm than fear. And so whenever we're being creative, we allow ourselves to get out of that anxious space. So those are a few ideas for you. I hope this helps. Please leave me any comments or suggestions below. Let me know if this works for you, and anything else that you need help with or anything that you would love to know more about, you can find me at juliemcclellan.com.